Hello everyone and welcome to the How Good Are. It's been a while since we've had one of these, so there has been a new batch of new spirit enhancements that I almost overlooked because, you know, they're rather small in stature, so of course we're gonna have to start out this round right here with Hinano, a little gremlin, kobold, whatever you want to call it, goblin, kind of cat, whatever you want to call it. So she has 2 charges, 2 blast discs, is a support type. Her stats aren't that great, so maybe if your stats aren't that great in your support type, maybe focus more on Excel discs, but of course that would mean that she needs to have a good Magia for her to make use of the Excel discs that you're gonna have. With discs like this, it looks more like she's supposed to support people by maybe giving them charge discs, maybe connecting a blast disc to them, so maybe like a charge blast support, something like that. We're gonna have to take a look at what she actually does to see how well she does that. I'm gonna put the person on hold, we're gonna take a look at that later. If we take a look at her connect though, it's damage up, that's pretty good. I usually like damage up more than attack up when it's on a connect. And it gives a chance to poison on attack. Now it doesn't say how many turns, but I assume since it doesn't mention anything, it's just poison for 1 turn. So here's the thing about poison. Poison is a level 1 status effect, meaning you don't get bonus damage against weak element that you would get if it was level 2, which is burn in this case. So sadly you don't get that part. However, of course you do get the other effect, Addict Killer, bonus damage to enemies just inflicted by status ailments if you have a character who has something like that. So for example, Holy Aina has that, for example, is probably the poster child for that. Oblivia I think also has that, yeah, he definitely has that. So if you're playing an Addict Killer team, yeah, maybe getting some more status ailments out would be alright, but apart from that, poison itself does basically nothing. It deals 5% of the enemy's maximum HP at the end of the turn, but damage over time effects can only deal a total of 10,000 at the end of a turn. So even if the enemy has a lot of HP, it will do at most 10,000, which I think by now should have been increased because that doesn't mean anything anymore. 10,000 is basically 0. But even so, against enemies that don't even have that much HP, like I think they need like 200,000 HP for this to actually do that much. So enemies that have less than 200,000 HP don't even take that much damage, so it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's not that strong of an effect in itself. It's really only really good for Addict Killer, or I guess if the enemy is evading a lot. If the enemy is inflicted with a status ailment, they can't evade anymore. So I guess it may be in that case. I'm not quite sure if that would be a good way of using this. Next up, the Magia. Maybe she has really good Magia. What does it do? It poisons all enemies for 3 turns, and 3 turns is actually pretty good if you are indeed playing an Addict Killer team, to make sure that you get the bonus on every single enemy for 3 turns. And if you're playing something that has multiple waves, for example, they have an EX quest where you have 1 wave at this front and then the actual boss after that, maybe on that first wave you can maybe try get her to Magia, although it's 1 Excel disc, so good luck actually trying to get her to Magia. But I guess if you have another wave to charge it up and then go to the boss wave or the strong wave or whatever it is, the final wave, then you can throw out the Magia and then your entire team can lean back and just make use of that Addict Killer. I guess that's fine. What else we have on there is the stun. And they actually, I was going to say they learned their lesson, but the thing is, this is one of the earliest Magias in the entire game, and she had a 100% chance to stun. It's more like they unlearned their lesson with other characters. 100% stun, that should be 100%. I want to see more 100% chances to inflict stuff on enemies. Why do so many other characters not have that? So the stun right here means that if the enemy has no other resistances, no immunities, no anything, then you're basically getting a free turn with this Magia, which is fine. Because here's the thing, she doesn't really do much else. This stun is like the only thing about her that actually makes her somewhat usable, like on a general team, right? To maybe sometimes get a free turn on your entire team. That can be really good to have. Saves you 1 turn of using Meteor Rain, because what other Memoria would you use in this game? The Doppel, exactly the same, doesn't matter at all. The Spirit Enhancement, this is what we came here for, right? The Spirit Enhancement. I will say though that up until now, everything that we've seen so far, she's not that great. She's pretty bad with everything we've seen so far, but the Spirit Enhancement, what do we have? We have the chance to poison on attack for 3 turns. 3 turns, once again, amazing. We want to have those long status ailments on the enemy. However, once again, it's only level 1. We don't get the bonus damage against weak element. It's kind of not that great. We still at least get the skill quickened because she's a support. He gets a damage cut to survive a little bit longer. She's not that tanky, so I guess that helps out a little bit. She can't be poisoned herself. Okay, not that important because, like I said, poison isn't that strong. And more importantly, though, she gets a chance to stun enemies on attack. So if you're fighting against singular enemies, it's possible you just randomly get a free turn if you stun that singular enemy. But of course, that means you're gonna have to take discs as Hinano, which you probably don't want to do because her stats aren't that great, and also because her connect isn't that great. Like, sure, you want to get her to Magia, but usually not on the big boss wave itself. Usually you want to build that up beforehand and then go into the boss wave with that. And once you're on the boss wave, you probably don't want to have her use any disc whatsoever and give those discs to characters that actually make use of those discs. Because like I said, her stats are bad and her connect is bad. So what is she doing with those discs? So you probably won't make use of that stun too often. And the active is chance to poison the one enemy. I kind of called this already, that she was going to get an active like this. And I said before, like, oh, if she wants to be good, she needs to have like a poison and maybe something like a darkness or whatever. Both of these effects 100% against all enemies. That would be a way of actually making her somewhat usable. But not only is it only one effect, the worst of them all, just poison, it's also just on one enemy. And it's only for one turn. But hey, at least 100% chance, right? This is one of the worst actives in the entire game. Hey, she uses a personal, poisons all enemies for one turn. Hey, that's at least something. You can poison all enemies, give an extra turn of poison in there to get more attack killer. So here's the thing, with everything that I've said so far, it seems like, hey, she might be actually kind of alright on an attack killer team. Yeah, kind of. But here's the thing, if you're playing an attack killer team, if you're playing a team that's all around status ailments, why not get someone who has similar like coverage with status ailments, who does like at least a level 2 status ailments for the bonus damage, right? Why not take the bonus damage? Why say, okay, I'm just gonna take the worst kind of status ailment out there just to have a status ailment on the enemy? So even on attack killer team, she's still a bad choice. And that's a really scathing critique of this character, to say that even on the team that she fits best in, she's still a bad pick. Hinano, you are as bad as you are tiny, and I'm saying that as a tiny person myself. I'm 1.68 meters, which is, I don't know how much there is in fake units. I think like 5'4" or something. So I'm sorry, you just I guess they don't like forest units. Moving on, though, we have Aimi. She's also a hetero, just like Hinano. Oh my god, could this be the head edition? No, because we have a really gay girl at the end of this. So what do we have here? We have 2 Exaltis, 2 Blast Discs, balance type, okay. Now, since she's a balance type, she has way better stats than Hinano, and I want you to compare these stats. She's a 4-star character with these stats. Now we have Hinano. She's a 5-star, but a support, and these are her stats. And you kind of see when I always say like, oh, supports have bad stats. Yeah, they basically have stats as if they were one rarity lower, because she had basically the same stats, but she's a 4-star only. She still hasn't been uncapped. She's never gonna put that cap up off. Why would she's got the hat? So we can take a tiny look at the personal already. It's got chance to defense Pierce, huh? It looks like this will be something that might help you get past some enemy defenses, and we'll see more of that in a bit. So what does she like? She has a connect that gives blast damage up, and another thing that gets you past enemy defenses. It's anti-evade. So I guess we can already say, hey, you play her on a blast team. Since she has 2 Exaltis, maybe she has a good Magia as well, we'll see in a second. Maybe you play her on a sort of blast team that maybe also wants to try to get to Magia. So on a Magia Blast hybrid team, you can take her along to make sure people hit hard with their Blastists, but also as a sort of tech choice, if the enemy happens to have a bunch of evade, you can use that and, yeah, screw over enemy evades. And if we do peek that Magia, we see, oh, more blast damage up to all allies and more chance to enter evade to all allies. Once again, really good stuff. But wait a second, I remember something. This disc set, this connect, this Magia. That's basically the same as this character right here. The same discs. We've got blast damage up and something to get past enemy defenses, and we have a Magia that gives even more of blast damage up to all allies. Wow! It's basically the same character, but way better, because Kazumi gets to be a natural 4-star, and so Kazumi is way better in general, has way better stats, way better effects, way better everything. But when we're talking about Kazumi right here, I just wanted to mention it, that in case you do have Kazumi, you can already shut this video off, well, maybe skip to the next character, but if you have Kazumi already, even if she's a 1-slot or a 2-slot, you probably already can throw Aimi in the bin, because everything that Aimi does, Kazumi does better. Apart from one aspect, and we'll get to that, although you can kind of already see, there's a lot of anti-evade on here. If you specifically need anti-evade, you won't need it very often, but if you specifically do need it and you have no other way of getting around that, usually I get around anti-evade by just using Magia, because enemies can't evade Magia, and I always play Magia teams, so if the enemy has evade, doesn't matter. The enemy could have a million HP with 100% evade on every single turn and immunity to all styles of aiming, so you can't get around that. Even if the enemy was immune to anti-evade and you just had to deal with the enemy having 100% evade, doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter, because I'm just going to use a Mikake doppel and the enemy dies instantly anyway. But, or just any doppel, any magia, and the enemy just falls over anyway, so what does evade even matter? But if you specifically do play a blast team, then you might want to use anti-evade, right? Because if you're using blast, you're probably not using magia, although you can, like I said, sort of play a hybrid team, and then I guess it's fine to have an anti-evade. So I guess in that sense, the magia is also really good if you're playing that blast team that needs anti-evade. And if you look at the Spirit Enhancement, we see basically more of that. We see some more crits, some evade, sure. We've got anti-evade active with blast damage up active, sadly only for self. If this was for the entire party, that would have been way better. But yeah, just for self, I guess if she does draw her own discs, or if she gets connected to, and you want to deal some damage with her, maybe even also get past more of those pesky evades, then yeah, sure, this is going to be great. More importantly though, and I think this is the most interesting part, is that she gets Chase. And I love Chase. Chase is one of my favorite mechanics in this game. I just don't ever play around with Chase because there's no good sources. No good sources whatsoever. The only time you really see chases is on some characters that just happen to have like 15 or 20% chance of chase, and that's about it. There's something like 1 or 2 active Memoria that are bad, that are just bad, but they have like a little bit of chase on it, sure. I'm still waiting for that one passive Memoria that has like 25% attack up or 25% damage up and like 40% chance to chase or something like that on there. That would be a really good Memoria. I will play that Memoria because I like chase, but it never gets used. Same with counter. Counter basically never ever gets used anywhere. Remember when that was a thing? When people act on the enemy team, or when there was like counters around because there was wasn't anything else? No one has counter anymore. I haven't been countered in the entire game in like the last 2 years on a Japanese server. So, okay. Counter as a mechanic has completely been evaporated from the planet Earth. More importantly though, back to Aimi. So what can we say about this character? So if you want to play her as a blast damage support, so someone who gives blast damage to the team, but also who buffs the entire team with blast damage up, if you have Kazumi, forget about her. Kazumi is way better than at that job. Mostly because, here's the thing. If you want to use that magia, that juicy magia with the blast damage up and maybe the anti-evade, how are you getting to magia? I mean, she has 2 Excel-discs, but it kind of ends there. She has 2 Excel-discs and 12.5% Excel up. Okay. But you're probably playing her on a blast team, right? So how are you going to get more MP on a blast team? You know how Kazumi actually solves that problem. Kazumi actually has a similar problem, but she actually solves that because she generates MP every turn. She gets MP every turn. That's how she solves it. And if you get to Magia once, she has MP restore as well. So Kazumi has that problem solved. Not Aimi though. So purely as the blast support, not that great. Probably just play another blast character, like play Nanaka instead of her if she's not already on your team, or even play Tsuruno, I don't care. They're way better at supporting blast teams than Aimi. But, and here's the thing, here's the one time where you would play Aimi. If you're specifically going into a battle where you know the enemy has a lot of evade, and you have no other way of getting around it, you have no other character that has a really good source of anti-evade, you're not playing a Magia strategy, you probably might want to consider that. But if you really don't want to play a Magia strategy, then I guess you can take Aimi and blast enemies past their evade. Awesome. So that's all I can say about this character. Now we're going to move on to the last character, and she's already been in one of these videos where I talked about this character because I said in that video that she probably wasn't going to get Spirit Enhancement, and I guess if she was going to get Spirit Enhancement, that she would probably get an uncap, even if it was just a 2-star first, and then I could do the Spirit Enhancement and the uncap in the same video and stuff like that. She didn't even get an uncap, which is fine, but she got Spirit Enhancement before Uwasa Tsuruno. Uwasa Tsuruno is the only character who doesn't have Spirit Enhancement yet, but Kuro has it. So let's just very quickly go over Kuro again. Kuro has Turbo Stat, she's a 1-star, this don't matter. Her Connect gives a bonus to her girlfriend, but apart from that also does basically nothing. Her Magia does nothing. She's supposed to be a turbo character that does nothing, but what about her Spirit Enhancement though? It has 10% attack up, 15% attack up at max health. Wow, these are actually some good bonuses. Some defense up in here, bind on attack. Hey, these are some alright bonuses. This Spirit Enhancement in itself is actually quite alright. Nothing great, but it's quite alright. It's a pretty decent Spirit Enhancement. Not that it actually matters, because this Spirit Enhancement doesn't suddenly make her a good or usable character. So this is still a terrible character, and the Spirit Enhancement changes nothing about that. And you might be like, oh, but her active gives herself mana and regenerates MP as well. Gives like 15 MP and regenerates 3 MP every turn. Sounds quite alright, but her Magia does nothing, so she's still a terrible character. Like, her SE changes nothing about her. But that said, she's still more useful than some other characters. Why? Because of her personal. If she dies, she buffs everyone on the team, gives everyone an attack up and defense up for 2 turns. Not a whole lot, but still more useful than some other characters. If you somehow get her to 2 slots, which if you have a innocent gem, which is the thing that costs like actual real money for paid gems, you can get one of these, which gives any character a new slot. You could use that on Kuro. Some whales have done that. Some whales have given Kuro a slot with that. You could play like a Provoke Memoria on Kuro and provoke on turn 1, have her die immediately. So not only does she soak up an attack, she immediately dies. And if you have a draw ability on your team and you use that draw ability turn 1, you can't even get screwed over by Kuro's discs. So that's actually somewhat alright strategy. Not very powerful, because all you're getting is like absorbing 1 attack and then like 6% attack up for 2 turns, which is basically nothing. But still, it's some use. It's some use you can get out of this character. So also, just in general, this is the saddest Memoria in the entire game, just story-wise. So F's in the chat for Kuro. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.